Hello and welcome to episode 11. I always want to say hello, good evening and welcome, which I think gives you a clue to my age. If you're my age or a bit older, you'll know why, and if you're not, then just don't worry about it. Although you may have seen a film with Michael Sheen playing David Frost, and that's where it comes from. But anyway, there's not been a great deal of knitting gone on this last week, I have to confess, but it's because we had some visitors over the weekend. One of my oldest friends came to stay, and yeah, there was too much talking and cooking, and prior to that, housework, because you know how you always have to deep clean the entire house if someone's coming to stay, even if they are your oldest friend and don't really care. But she came with her son, who obviously I've known since he was born. Haven't seen her for just over 2 years. So, and she's a nurse. She works in the NHS. She's quite high up actually, but has been involved in some fairly scary times over the last few months, and still is. So it was really nice to see her and just kind of reassure myself that she was okay. But I have managed to finish 2 things. Before I get on to showing those though, I want to talk to you about adverts. Now, I have chosen not to monetize my podcast, vlog, whatever you want to call it. I don't think I have enough subscribers or views yet anyway, but that's always been my intention not to do that, which means that there shouldn't be any adverts. However, YouTube, in their infinite wisdom, have changed things and are apparently popping adverts into things here, there and everywhere without being asked. So should adverts start popping up in my podcasts, I just want you to know it's not because I've decided to this piece of hair is really annoying me. Have decided to ask for money for them. It's something that YouTube has decided of its own accord. Because I know how annoying adverts are. I have in fact recently just decided to get YouTube Premium to get rid of the adverts because I don't like them. So that's adverts dealt with. Right, finished objects. You might have spied one already behind me. I've finished my my Breezeway tee by Fogbound Knits, and here it is, and I'm really pleased with it. I would have liked the fade from the second to the third colour to have been a bit more gentle, but I didn't judge my yarn amounts terribly well, so it is what it is. You may remember, if you've seen previous podcasts, there was a bit of a false start. I began knitting it in the suggested needle size and it wasn't getting the right tension, and the neckline was coming out extremely wide. So I pulled it down, went up a needle size to 3.75 from 350 millimeters, and knit the next garment size down, and it actually fits really nicely. I had intended to wear it today to show you, but it's far too warm. We've had temperatures up to 25 degrees here in Somerset the last few days, and it's just getting more and more humid because we're expecting thunderstorms overnight. And for the next few days, I think this is probably the last of the nice weather for a little while. Looking at my BBC weather app, there's going to be sunshine and showers, but I think this is our last glorious day, but far too warm for this. So yeah, so started knitting it again. Very, very pleased with how it's come out. It does say in the pattern that you can wear it inside out as well, so with the garter side showing. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a croak. But although I liked it more when I was knitting it on the inside, I think it does look better on the outside. So I got to the bottom and two things happened. I had miscalculated how much yarn I was going to need, and I had misread the pattern. So the back, you can probably see, is a little longer than the front. It should be longer still. I had to leave off 4 of the short rows, German short rows, and the edging should be 9 garter stitch rows, and I didn't have enough yarn to do that, so I think I did 5. So it looks okay. It's just not quite as the pattern directed. I would have had enough yarn if I hadn't panicked when I changed from this colour to the second one. I had quite a lot of yarn left, and I had a fair amount of yarn left here. So if I hadn't panicked up here, I think I would have had enough. So that was 300 grams. And I'm very pleased with it. I love the colour. The yarn came from, let me hang it up, my year-long advent from Anjknits, and it's all, where's my thing gone? 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, and they're all the same base. They don't have colour names because they were in the advent. They were just wrapped up as a month. So I think that one was January. This one I think was February. I think that one might have been April. The middle one might have been April. Not that it matters. But yeah, very, very pleased with that. So that's 3 months of my advent calendar I've used already. The pattern was Breezeway by Fogbound Knits, and I've made mine a little bit longer just because that hip bone length on me I don't think is terribly flattering. I'd rather have it a little bit longer. So yeah, you might even see it next week because it's meant to be a lot cooler next week. So that's my first finished object. My second finished object, or objects, I never know whether a pair of socks is 1 or 2, is the pair of socks I was knitting for my son. Knit these on a 2.25 needle, which is my usual sock needle size. Magic loop, vanilla sock out of my own head with a Fleegle heel. I've not tried a Fleegle heel for his socks before. I normally do an afterthought heel for his. So we'll see if he finds these more comfortable. And the yarn is Rico Superba Bamboo Superwash, which he chose himself, and it is 50% wool, 25% polyamide and 25% viscose, and it's quite soft, which is what he was looking for. I think because he had surgery on his ankle a couple of years ago. He had a nasty motorcycle accident, well, he broke his wrist and his ankle, but he's got pins in his ankle and a bit of scaffolding, and I think where the scar is particularly sensitive. It's got that kind of weird numb but overly sensitive feeling, I think, so he wanted some really soft socks. So he chose this yarn and bought it and had it sent to me, and I've done my job. So socks for him done. Having finished my Breezeway meant that I could cast on my next jumpery type project, and as I said the other week, I have cast on the Rocket Tee by Tanis Laverly, I think that's how you say her name, from Tanis Fibre Arts. I only cast it on after dinner last night, so I haven't done a huge amount. Oh, come out. But that's how far I've got so far. Not very far at all, really, in the scheme of things. but it's constructed much the same way as the, what was it called, stillness sweater that I made a few weeks ago. So it's knit flat until you get to the end of the V, and then you join it and go in the round. And I'm using for that the mohair yarn is Cello Wool's Mesmerize 100% acrylic that I won on eBay a long time ago, in golden tan is the colourway, and the white is King Cole Value Baby 4 ply, and again it's 100% acrylic. So far it's a change to knit, because you're counting the rows for your stripes and you're counting the rows for your increases, and yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit more interesting, because once you get past the increasing and dividing for the sleeves, I tend to lose a little bit of interest, because then it's just round and round usually, although there's a little bit of increasing sometimes. It's not as interesting. So yeah, hopefully I'll whack through that one quickly. I've already downloaded another sweater pattern that I wasn't supposed to. I downloaded ranunculus this morning, and I've been saying everybody's knitting them. I think a couple of people have got knit-alongs going on for them, and I've been saying I am not going to knit one. Everybody's doing it. I am not going to jump onto the bandwagon, but I think I might, because yeah, it was in my favourites for ages. So yeah, that might be next. See, that's it. I've done it again, haven't I? That is another thing that I've added on to my not very short list. The idea is that it's meant to get shorter as the year goes on, not every time I take something off because I've finished it, I add another thing on in its place. That's not how it's supposed to work. Never mind. This is the yarn that I had left from my breezeway. So you can see that's the bottom colour. I had a very little amount of that left. I had probably, oh, I don't know, maybe enough for another row, maybe not. But I had, of the first colour, the grey, all of this left. So I could have got, I think, a few more rows out of that, and then I might have had enough yarn at the end. But anyway, they've already gone into the beginnings of my scrap blanket, which is getting close to being, the first strip getting close to being long enough. So yeah, I've been trying to not put, if I've got enough yarn left over that I can do something with, I've been trying not to put it in there. And I've been saying I only want to put sort of 5 gram or around 5 to 10 grams in here, but I'm wondering if I might increase that a bit, because I've got lots and lots of yarn from socks that I finished, and then there's enough to maybe make another pair of socks. Well, if that's fair enough, I'll make another pair of socks, but if there's not enough, then it could really go in here, couldn't it? I hang on to it because I think, well, perhaps I'll use it for toes, heels and cuffs, but then I don't, because I want to use a plain yarn that contrasts with whatever the body of the sock is. I don't like to waste anything, but I don't like to use it for something and then go, oh no, I could have saved it and done something else with it. I'm very indecisive about everything. But the one thing I do know is that I have to hang on to everything. So yeah, so that's getting longer. And actually I'll give you a quick run through. These 3 obviously are from my breezeway tee. That was just a sample from Craft House Magic, but it was such a beautiful colour that I put it in because it is one of my favourite colours. That was from the very first ever hand dyed yarn I ever bought. That was December last year, so you can see how far down the rabbit hole I've fallen in 7 months. That was left over from my sugar plum shawl. Again, that's Craft House Magic yarn. That I think is King Cole Zigzag, and I made some socks from that and a pair of mittens, fingerless mittens, for a friend for Christmas, and that was all I had left of that ball. That is just an oddment out of West Yorkshire Spinners Candy Cane, which is the cream and green and red stripes. That one was another bamboo yarn that I made socks for my daughter-in-law for Christmas. All of these are my youngest son's socks, and this at the bottom, from the purple down to this green, were from one ball of rainbow yarn that I made my son some socks for Christmas, my eldest son, and also a friend's son. So far I remember what they all are. How long that will last, I don't know. I did wonder, I did think about this, but I'm not very clever with computers, about whether I could kind of work out a spreadsheet that I could keep a record of what yarn was which and what I'd done with it, kind of for posterity, or whether to just write a list or make a chart, because I do keep a knitting journal. I say I keep it, I don't do very well with it. I tend to write stuff in when I finish it, and sometimes I print off the picture to stick in. Other times I forget to print off the picture, and other times I print it off but don't actually get around to sticking it in. So I'm not terribly conscientious with my journal keeping, but I feel like this blanket is going to have so many random bits of yarn in, and they will all have come from things I've made, so it would be nice to remember what the yarn was and what it had come from. But I've yet to decide how to realise that, how to plan it and how to do it. So yeah, if you've got any suggestions, stick them in the comments. Any polite suggestions, I should say. Black socks, there's been a little work on those. Everybody seems to be very taken with them. Let me take that out. They are coming along. Oh, you can't see them quite so well today. Let's see if I can. What is that on there? Oh my God, they're covered in cat hair. Everything is covered in cat hair. Yeah, so they are coming along. The reason they've not come along further is that they were my sitting in bed in the morning knitting, and I haven't had a lot of time for doing that. So I'm moving them to sitting out in the garden knitting, because then I might actually be able to see what I'm doing as well, which is always a bonus, I find. Black is really hard to work with, but I think they're going to look ever so good, and I wish I'd never made them in black, because I'm making them to give away. They're going to be a raffle prize a friend asked me for, but now I want to knit a pair for myself, which is not good, because that means more black. So to try and get around that, in my camp bag for summer sock camp, I have cast on another pair in this colour. And these, well, let me tell you about the yarn first. The yarn is again from my Anjknits Fibres Advent, and this was the June colour. And it is coming out fairly true on there. It's muted greens and greeny greys. It doesn't have a name. If I were naming it, I would probably call it something like zombie flesh. but maybe summer grassland would be more appropriate. But yeah, so for summer sock camp, I wanted to challenge myself and learn something new, because let's face it, I make a million pairs of socks, so just joining in for the sake of joining in would have been a bit silly. So I wanted to learn to make them on 2 needles. I normally do magic loop. 2 needles is very similar to magic loop, and after a little bit of fiddliness to begin with, I picked it up quite quickly. So I think that will go into my stable of ways to make socks. And I couldn't decide what yarn to use and what pattern to use. And then I opened this, was my June advent, as I say. And I thought, well, I'll use that because, you know, summer sock camp. Maybe in July I'll use the July colour, and I think it runs in August as well. In August I'll use the August colour, but we'll see what the colours are. But then I couldn't decide what pattern to do, and I wanted to make some more of the cable socks, and I thought, well, I'll just do those because at least I can see what I'm doing with this colour. Really, it's just when you get to sort of the moss stitch section in the middle, it really helps if you know whether you're supposed to be doing a purl or a knit stitch. And I won't say I've memorised the pattern because it's a 10-row repeat, but I can figure out what stitch should come from looking at the one that I did on the row below. So having something that I can actually see was a bonus. So I cast those on, and I've done not very much. But yeah, so those are my summer sock camp, I have to say it very carefully, summer sock camp pair. So that's it then. That's all my whips, that's all my finished objects. The only thing left to talk to you about is the Great June giveaway. The Great June giveaway runs till the 29th of June, midnight British summertime. All you need to do to enter is comment on episodes 8 or 9 or 10 or this one, which is 11. If you've already commented on one of the others, you've already entered, but you're quite welcome to comment again. There is only 1 entry per person because I think that's the only fair way to do it, but comment away. If you want to comment but you don't want to enter, just let me know that in your comment and I won't put your name into the pot. So the prize is a tote bag made by myself, which is fairly large, but it is designed for your knitting, not for your shopping. Inside you will find a notions pouch, again made by myself, a knitting sheep pin which was donated via the Ko-fi account by a lady named Joy, 3 greetings cards by a local artist of Galaxies, and finally, last but definitely not least, a skein of Pinata yarn by Ducky Darlings, which is Supermosh Merino 75%, 25% nylon. So perfect for socks, cowl, 1 skein shawl, many things to do with it. If you would like to enter, but this is a bit too bright for you, there is another skein available called Freckles. If you pop back to episode 8 and have a look, you'll see what the Freckles looks like. So if you want to enter but you would prefer to have the other colourway, that can be sorted out should you win, not to worry. And that's it really. That is all for today. hopefully you're all well. Oh, I must apologise for last week. I was still talking and it cut me off. I refused to record anymore. I've had so many technical issues. It wouldn't let me edit. It was telling me that my memory was full. And for the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've been deleting things like a lunatic, trying to free up some memory space and just not freeing any up. And I was at my wit's end last week because it cut me off and it wouldn't do anything with the video. And I was like, oh, that's it. I'm gonna have to, because I do this on my phone. I'm gonna have to get a new phone. I don't know what's wrong with it. But I deleted more stuff and it was still saying there was no memory. Some of you probably know where this is going because you're a bit more techno savvy than I am. So I deleted all this stuff and got nowhere and was beginning to lose my patience. I was at it for sort of 2 hours. Tried to get the video onto my laptop. I managed after, I don't know how I did it. I managed to get it from my phone to my laptop, but my laptop wouldn't open it. And I was ready to throw everything out the window. So I thought, right, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to have something to eat, I'm going to calm down, I'm going to come back to it when I'm chilled. And while I was eating my lunch, I suddenly thought, I wonder. So I went into the settings on my phone and everything that I'd deleted had just been put into another file called recycling bin. So 57% of the storage on my phone was taken up by the recycling bin. Now this is probably no surprise to most of you out there, but this was a great surprise to me because I thought once you got rid of it, it was gone. But no, it just moves it from one place to another. So I deleted the recycling bin and bingo, it would let me do stuff. So that's why we got cut off mid last week. So I apologise. I apologise for the fact that my phone threw a hissy fit, and I apologise for the fact that I am just so technically unsavvy that I didn't realise it was going to happen. Anyway, hopefully that situation is now sorted. I know what I'm doing. Ha! I have no idea what I'm doing most of the time. So it shouldn't happen again. So that's everything I needed to tell you. Hopefully staying well. Hopefully you've got good weather. We have at the moment, but it doesn't look like it's going to last. In fact, I can see clouds coming already. So I will see you next week, probably complaining that it's wet instead of complaining it's too hot. I may even be complaining that it's too hot and it's wet, because that is my least favourite weather in the world. Anyway, that's enough nonsense. I will see you next week. I hate finishing these videos. It's like driving. I did used to be a driving instructor, and people are terrified of motorways because it's hard to get on and it's hard to get off. And making these videos is very similar, I find. Getting started is difficult, and then finishing is also difficult. So I'm going to treat it a bit like driving on the motorway. Check all around that there's nothing I need to know about, signal, and go. Bye guys.